Hey, what's up? I am Shelby, and in this video I'm doing a Q&A. I asked you guys on Instagram to comment any questions that came to mind, and let's get straight into it. So the first question is from Sarah Maureen 17. How do you motivate yourself after falling off the bandwagon? So I have a lot of like routines and rituals that I have in place, so it's sort of like if I don't do them 1 week, I know what I have to do to get back on track, and it's just to follow my routines and rituals. So there's not like much motivation that goes into it. It's more just doing what I know I need to do. Kananiri asks, where in Australia do you recommend to live? The Gold Coast, that's where I live. I won't say where on the Gold Coast I live. A lot of people see the Gold Coast as like a party place, which it kind of is. I mean, if you focus exclusively on Surfers Paradise, which is like our tourist attraction. But we also have like beautiful beaches and a lot of cool places popping up now. Like Triceratops said, were you always a clean, organized, minimal person? Or did those habits develop through your minimalism journey? Oh, I definitely have not always been a clean person. Like no, 110% no. I'm still not a naturally clean person. I would say 1000% a lot of my like cleaning and organizing has come through pursuing more of a simple life. Fruitcat asked, are you still into veganism, and if so, how are you finding it? Yes, so I actually went vegan early this year, or I should say plant-based. I should correct myself. I am plant-based. Possessions I'm still working on. Honestly, it's not that huge of a change. Like I feel like end of last year I kind of tried to start phasing out any dairy, anything not plant-based basically, so it was a pretty easy transition. Probably the main thing that I struggled with was just like I forgot, so I'd buy like a hot chocolate and I'd be like, oh hold on, like I've transitioned to a vegan diet, I can't actually drink this. And there's also just little things that you don't know. Like the other day I found out that the teriyaki sauce at sushi is actually not vegan. Otherwise I'm finding it really good. It suits my lifestyle. It suits like simple eating. It works for me. Zoe Rose 02 asked, what is your biggest tip for a new YouTuber? So for those of you who don't know, I actually have a second channel that is fully dedicated to helping people do YouTube, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you if you're interested in starting a YouTube channel. Lindsay Stout Jez asked, would you start a podcast, and what is your all-time favorite podcast right now? If eventually I go down to more of a part-time job and I'm not just dedicating my weekends to YouTube and this kind of stuff, definitely I would consider starting a podcast a little bit more seriously. If I did start a podcast, what kind of podcast would you guys be interested in? Would you be interested in just a me free talking, or one-on-one interviews with people? I'd love to hear like what you guys would actually be after from a podcast from me. Shippy13 asked, how did you meet Luke? I love your videos, by the way. Thank you so much. Me and Luke actually met on a night out like in Surfers Paradise. It's at a place called Waxy's. Any of you guys who live on the Gold Coast might have heard of it. It's a bit of a dingy place. He was looking at me with his friend from across the room. I glared back at him. His self-confidence level, especially when he's been drinking, is like literally up here. So he came over, we started talking. He got my number, and the rest is history. He ended up texting me next day, didn't follow the 3-day rule, thank God, or I don't think I would have actually gone out with him. And we ended up going out on a date, found out that we had a lot in common, and here we are. Love of my life. Glass Crowns asked, do you travel much? If so, how do you pack? I actually don't travel much, and that is probably only because I've saved for a deposit on a house. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have known that I bought an apartment, which I'm currently renting out. So most of my savings weren't really going towards travel, more so towards my house deposit. However, now I'm saving for Europe next year. I have traveled to the US for 2 months, but I still have a lot to learn when it comes to traveling, I would say. And traveling as a minimalist, I think will be interesting. Like I'd really like to nail it and just be like a pro minimalist packer. We'll see how I go. Grab Life and Go asks, what book are you currently reading? So I'm actually currently reading the 80-20 Principle. This is another one where if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen my story. So I'm reading the 80-20 Principle by Richard Koch. I've talked about the 80-20 principle before, but I've only really learned about it from like blog posts and little snippets of things here and there, and I was like, no, I really want to deep dive into this topic. I would for sure recommend this book. It's been really interesting to like get perspective on it. It was good. I was like sitting there sort of helping Luke with his assignment. He was like reading the 80-20 principle out loud, and we were both just like, oh my God, some of these concepts, like, yes, we need to like do this, do that. It was really like inspiring to read. So, I mean, if you can read it with your partner, do so. Taylor Cole asks, how do you balance a love for smashed avos on toast and also begin saving for a mortgage deposit? I love that. I don't know if that's like a world thing, but in Australia there was, I don't know if it was the Prime Minister, it was someone important, said that young people need to stop eating smashed avocado and then they'll be able to afford to save for a home deposit. I actually ate a lot of smashed avo while saving for a home deposit, so I've debunked that myth. I'm really lucky. I live at home rent free. I pay for my own groceries and everything like that, but I don't pay any actual rent. So so that definitely helps. I also have a pretty good job. I do online learning design, so I'm very lucky that the balance of those two things has allowed me to save for a home deposit. It was basically a matter of putting away the exact same amount of money every single week, reducing how much I spent, which was done easily through pursuing minimalism. If you want to learn more about how I manage money and minimalism, I have a video on that. I'll link it in the description. From Curacao or Curacao with love, who are your favorite bloggers and vloggers? So my favorite bloggers at the moment, Yes and Yes is killing me. Yes and Yes is all about like money and happiness and how they sort of align. I'll link the blog in the description below. I've talked about it before, so I won't talk about it at length, but James Clear is always one that I'm like, have been obsessed with. My dad is really into it as well. He like introduced it to me and I was like, oh, whatever. But now I'm really like James Clear. James Clear is very like habits focused and he focuses on minimalism a little bit as well. Sydney Marie Phillips, your life and space look so perfect all the time. How often do you fall behind and find yourself in a mess of clothes, dishes, etc., or is your space actually that perfect all the time? I kind of love this question because it helps me to address this, but at the same time, I hate that anyone would ever think that anyone else has a perfect life. No one lives a perfect life. No one has their shit together all of the time. Of course, my space gets messy. Of course, sometimes dishes build up on the sink. I'm actually terrible with dishes. Let's be honest. I'm not like always on, always motivated, always like ready to go and productive. Like I have bad days. No one's space is perfect all the time. No one's life is perfect all of the time. Everyone has their own internal things that they're struggling with. Marley Marzipan asked, could you talk a bit about your decision to go vegan? So my decision to go vegan really came from a health perspective. If you've been around for like a really long time, I mentioned once in one video, one of my biggest fears is developing like some kind of crippling disease. And it's not that that comes from anywhere. I don't have anyone in my family that's really gone through that. I honestly don't know where it's come from. I have seen people in my workplace deal with partners that have had that kind of thing happen, but veganism is just the best diet to prevent that. My two closest friends are both vegan, so that makes it a lot easier. Pretty much like all the places that we went to were vegan. My whole family is vegetarian. I took it with baby steps, like 1 year cutting out red meat, 1 year vegetarian. Next step was going vegan. It just made sense for like my health and my life. Even if you go vegan for health reasons, down the line you do think about the animal cruelty and the environmental side of going vegan, because those are incredibly important as well. They just weren't my motivators. Sorry, I shouldn't say vegan, I should say plant-based. I really need to correct myself. Shanice Huziak, and I'm really sorry if I got your name wrong because you're a freaking babe and you always comment the nicest things. We've got like 3 questions in one. So what is your planning routine? I think my planning and my journal routine would need like a whole dedicated video. But your last question is, how do you manage your full-time job, goals, boyfriend, family, and friends? I'm having so much trouble trying to make it work and it seems like you do a good job of it. Look, I'd love to say that I have the secret to managing all of those things because it is really hard. But if it's helpful at all, a lot of it for me has come from building routines, so knowing when I need to do certain things in order to feel on top of it, having limits, so not doing too much socializing. That comes as just being an introvert, and it comes from just knowing that I have so much to do. Having set times when I do certain things. Those are really my main things that I do to try and sort of keep it together, but 100% I can appreciate it's very hard. But routines, rituals, and setting limits are probably like my top 3 things to keep things like sorted. Honey to the Bee asked, how do you manage to sleep early and to be able to wake up early as well? I get so many questions since doing my how to wake up at 5 AM video on what time I go to sleep. So to just make things clear, I go to sleep at like 9 to 9:30. I mean, depends on the night. I hit my low of an afternoon where I'm like, okay, like I don't think I can do much more. So I'm better off going to sleep early, waking up earlier so that I can get things done in the morning. But if that's not something that works for you, works for your schedule, works for your productivity, then don't feel like you need to wake up early. Thank you guys so much for leaving all of your questions. I'm so sorry that I didn't get to all of them. I literally wish that I could. That would be an extremely long video and I don't think that anyone would watch it. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel by clicking the subscribe button. Follow me on Instagram for if I do any future Q&As, that's where I do them. I appreciate you guys so much and I will see you soon.